What's cooking, folks? Vermillion Phoenix here, and today we are jumping into some Orcs Must Die 3. We're going to be looking at the fourth scenario in Riftlord, the Hidden Dock, and this level is going to be interesting for a number of reasons. First, there is a lot of stuff coming at you immediately out of the gate, including some dangerous archers, ogres, and we're going to have sappers, a lot of sappers. If you haven't dealt with sappers in an Orcs game previously, or you haven't dealt with a large rush of them in this one yet, this should probably give you some help in learning how to deal with them and sort of some strategies to build. Now, this is only one of them. There's other ones that work too. In this game, to set up barricades, you ultimately have the ability to buy and sell your barricades to replace the unhealthy ones. But also, if you don't want to go through the hassle of trying to sell and replace things, you also have the unique upgrade on the trap reset trinket, which allows you to heal barricades. Now, I know there's some bugs with that right now, where you can sometimes heal a barricade to the point where it appears to just stop taking damage, or it just gets some form of overhealth or whatever. I'm not exactly sure how that gets reproduced or how it works, or even if it will get removed at some point in the game, but I've seen it happen on a couple of various streams, and some people have already reported it to the devs. So we're not focusing on that specifically, but that is one of the things that may happen if you decide to use the trap reset trinket's barricade healing buff. So either way, however you decide to do it, I'm not using that particular buff here. I have the faster trap cooldown on my trap reset trinket, which I bring with me for this level. But ultimately, this is a very straightforward plan. I play extremely recklessly here. You can do this a lot cleaner than I did as well, like without all the dying. That's mainly what it means. You can also use a weapon that is a bit more accurate, which doesn't force you to get as close to your opponents as often as I do. And here I'm basically just kind of digging around with Featherfall for a little while, but we'll skip ahead to when we actually start placing traps, and we can pick up from there. So here's where I decided to set up. The first bend that the orcs go through when they come out of the initial gate on the map will lead to this alcove, and ultimately they're going to try to pass through here no matter what you do. You can try to block it up, but really that's a waste of coin in the first wave. So, you know, ultimately just building a funnel that they're going to use because it's closer to the rift and it's a shorter path isn't a bad idea. To make sure that they don't split, I also barricaded the other side off. So at the very least, we know they're going to try to get through this section, and we have a slow trap set up, the tar, to make sure that they clump up there. And then we have the wall of butterflies, or the butterfly window, whatever you'd like to refer to it as, and it will help to mitigate some of the enemies that are going to be running through by turning them around. And both of these basically just give us better time to deal with things. I'm going to be flipping through some stuff and ultimately toss out one of the traps that I have here for something else. Well, actually I just did it, but we are going to be using both the arrow walls and the grinders here. It's probably not necessary to do both, but I like the fact that the arrow walls are better at dealing with the ogres, and they're not too bad against clumped up groups of enemies, because they'll hit quite a few of them. Because they shoot 3 bursts, they actually get to spread the damage out very well as concentrated groups of enemies kind of walk past them. But yeah, like, it's just a good combination for a high traffic area to have some high damage burst traps with things that deal damage somewhat continuously. So you can deal a lot of damage for the smaller enemies and wipe them out quickly, and whatever might make it through the continuous traps without, you know, necessarily getting blown to pieces will then get shot up with all of the arrows. So that works out pretty well. Now, one of the most important things that you're going to have to deal with on this stage, besides the runners, besides the sappers, besides the ogres, is going to be archers. Archers are a massive pain in the butt on this stage because they're there from the beginning and they stay there the entire time. Just cognitively staying present when dealing with archers, like remembering that you have to continuously move around or use cornering to your advantage to make sure that archers don't have a clear line of sight on you, is important. People that have played a lot of first-person shooters probably know like this maneuvering a lot more intrinsically, you know, where you're sort of peeking out for your damage and using the wall as cover to prevent the archers from getting a lot of shots off on you. Now, since these are projectiles rather than, you know, like hit scan attacks, they take a bit of time to reach you, and you can just weave through the arrows. But as the number of archers increase and their fire timing starts to get staggered, it becomes more and more difficult, especially since archers are able to fire through orcs, and you can't necessarily see where the projectiles are coming from until, you know, they're literally past all of the orcs that are in front of you and about to hit you, which gives you much less reaction time than if archers needed a clear line of sight. So that was always interesting to me, even before the pathing patch change, where, you know, your projectiles will completely not go through any sort of obstructions, enemies, unless they had a piercing buff on them of some sort. But the orc arrows will just fly through all sorts of obstacles until they hit a player. Like, it's just ridiculous. But besides the fact that the archers are basically godlike compared to what you have, ultimately it's not too bad. They tend to stand still when they're shooting. So that's probably the biggest advantage. If you have enough traps set up in an area where you're going to be getting shot at from, you can kind of bait the archers into areas where you have trapped up, and as long as they start trying to shoot in the damage area of a trap, ultimately they will basically just start killing themselves, and that's exactly what you're looking for. So we set up our barricade on the right side, which is great. The placing for this is actually super important, at least for the way that I play it out here. I put 3 barricades, all touching side by side in the closest corner around that bend, and then the sappers have a habit of blowing up on the nearest barricade that obstructs pathing, and so you can sort of build a replacement barricade behind it as long as the corners touch and it doesn't break the formation. And this requires only placing, I believe, like 3 or 4 additional cades max, rather than having to completely set up a second branch of barricades at an earlier time. It leaves your money available to you for pretty much the entire duration of the match without you wasting a lot just to make sure that, you know, your rift has security. And I think that worked out pretty well for me, because again, I'm gonna die a lot here. Like, it hasn't started yet, but it's shenanigans once it does. And I think it's just because I was just rushing, like, knowing that you're really not going to be losing rift points when you die is kind of, it's liberating in the fact that, like, you can just be super reckless. It's best if you don't die, because it's lost character DPS, which is kind of important, especially on early levels, or not on early levels specifically, but in early waves where, you know, you don't have a lot of cash, so your traps aren't going to be soloing like the large groups of enemies. Later on, that's completely possible, and that's kind of, you know, the way that Endless has to work, or else it doesn't really matter. Because if you were still manually having to handle 100% of the enemies that come through an Endless, traps would be useless. But yeah, just before you get that set up, you want to try to stay alive. But once you actually can recognize that your traps are doing a lot of work, then, you know, you can YOLO it a little bit. And anytime I'm starting to put up auto ballistas after, you know, we got crowd control traps going out, that's pretty much a sign that the build is just about almost finished. And then we just start going nuts since we got that skull picked up. And there's me getting whacked again.
Generally, that doesn't happen to me.
Alright, I think those are more explosive enemies coming. We placed those grinders near the entrance of the first or main kill box because of those sappers that are going to be coming out. If you don't have any sort of continuous damage or traps that trigger immediately, like the Arcane Brimstone down, then when those guys come around, they're going to immediately start trying to blow up your barricades. If you have anything there that will take them out, then ultimately you'll be safe. The ceiling traps really aren't as good at taking out fast enemies in this game, so you're really going to want to rely on your wall traps to actually get that done. Again, Grinder's probably the best choice for sappers and kobolds, but you can also use those Arcane Brimstones since they'll step on it and immediately take enough damage to just detonate. And that makes it really safe if you pay attention to the pathing and place the Brimstones in the right place. I had accidentally doubled up a tar there right on top of each other, which was pointless because they're slowed after they step on the initial one, so had to go ahead and fix that. And I believe this is, I'll die again trying to go over and check the other side, and that kind of gives me a shortcut. So we go back over here, and they've damaged another barricade back there, and again, like I said, you just build a barricade behind it as long as the corners touch, and it recreates the sort of protection that you need, literally the barrier to the rift. You'll be fine because here's the next set of sappers. They're gonna run over there and blow it up. We lose a barricade, but we're already safe. So luckily, like, they didn't decide to toss out like another wave of sappers immediately afterwards. But yeah, the sappers aren't so strong yet that they can really just take out an entire set of barricades on their own, which is good. And then those are the final cades that I set up here at all. There's a good use of Featherfall to try to get somewhere a little bit quicker. We get to the rift and we get to avoid wherever these Noah hunters were really coming from, trying to take us out in the back. But yeah, at this point, everything we're building is pretty much just gravy and cleanup work. Like, a couple of enemies could still wind up making it through here, but it's much less common. And that is a lot of Grenadier gnolls. Like, what was that? 4 or 6? 4 taken out before those last 2, I think. The 2 that originally chased me, the first 2, and then those last 2 that I just took out. But yeah, like, in addition to everything you're doing here, after you can make sure that you're safe from any hunter enemies, then you get to just come back over here and start crowd controlling things and placing a bunch of traps since you got a ton of coin left. And this is pretty straightforward at this point. Like, just set your damage up and these guys will ultimately just die under the weight of all of the traps and the damage you have set up.
Only in your dreams. That won't happen.
And yeah, they send out a lot of sappers at this point. And that's them destroying that last barricade that I'd barricaded around. But again, because we placed 2 barricades around it, it pretty much preserved the barrier and they couldn't get in on the right side. So ultimately everybody still runs through this funnel that we have going here and into all of the nice grinders, ice darts, and arcane auto ballistas that we have set up. I always want to call them dragon lances like they were called in Arcane, but I die again. I love that death line, by the way. Like, that's just great. How can I blame this on Max? Like, that's such an in-character line for Gabriella. I think I was actually laughing at the game when that happened to me and I heard that the first time. Like, it was just so good. I love the fact that the voice actors and direction for Orcs Must Die Unchained can create moments like that. It's one of the things that really makes me love this game. Like, besides all of the mechanics and stuff to be had, the traps to try out, like, I really feel like the characters are endearing in this tower defense game. And if a lot of people have asked me what I really like about Orcs, other than, you know, just the mechanics and everything, and it's really the humor and character that they put into this game. You won't find anything like it in any other tower defense game I've found. But yeah, that's going to be it for this stage. Not anything super crazy other than me getting my butt kicked by taking too many arrows in the face or knees or back or wherever you want them. Like, it's just, they shot me to death here. But yeah, this was a pretty straightforward and fun stage. Let me know what you guys think about it, if you had any troubles. But I'll catch you guys in the next video. I sincerely thank you for watching this far. You know, you guys are great for just checking out my videos and leaving comments and all of that good stuff. I love hearing from you. Feel free to like the video if you enjoyed it. Follow the channel if you want to see more things that I'll be doing. And drop a comment if you have something to say. But until next time, as always, take care of yourselves. It's the most important thing these days. And as always, have a good one, folks. Peace.